Let me start by saying this because somebody needs to hear it. You don't need to be rich to buy a home. That's a fact. You don't need to have everything figured out. And you definitely don't need to feel behind than anybody else. What you do need is a plan, you do need some patience, and you need the right information as well. So right now, a lot of people are saying or quietly thinking to themselves, can I really save enough to buy a home? Did I miss my window? Should I buy a home or should I even think about investing? If any of those questions sound familiar, this video is just for you. By the end of this video, I'm going to walk you through how much realistically you need to save, what timeline actually looks like if you're in your 20s, your 30s, or your 40s. I want to give you practical ways that people are using to save right now. And also, I want to give you strategies like house hacking that completely change the game and that you can use to be a homeowner. So in this video, no pressure, no fear. I just want to give you clarity and hope that yes, you can do it. Let's get into it. Quick invite before we dive in. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, thank you so much for supporting our channel. If you're new, just know that this channel is for people who want to make smart, peaceful decisions about real estate. So whether you're thinking about buying your first home or you're thinking to investing, you're gonna like this video. This video is for you. So please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below saying, whether you're thinking about investing or you're thinking about buying a home. I read every comment, and it helps me shape the future videos as I make them for you, as I take the time. So let's talk about numbers. One of the biggest misconceptions, and I hear this all the time, when people say, I can't buy a home yet because I don't have 20% save. And here's the truth. You do not need 20% to buy a home. You don't. But that doesn't mean saving 20% isn't powerful, because it is. It gives you a lot of options. So let's talk about this right now. And let's talk about it the right way so you can understand the difference. Let's just first clear the confusion about the 20%. For most primary home buyers, what they do and how they purchase, they really purchase with 3 to 5% down. Most down payments are between 3 to 5% down. Closing costs usually run about 2 to 4% of the total cost of the price of the purchase of the property that they're purchasing. So that means that you can realistically buy a home between 5 to 9%, between 5% to 9% of the total of the cost of the home. So yes, buying is possible without 20%, but now let's explain why some people still aim for 20% anyway. The real benefit of saving 20% is this. And by the way, saving 20% doesn't mean that you're better than other buyers. It just gives you options. Here, what 20% can do for you. One, it can lower your monthly payment. More money down means smaller loan, which means less interest over time. Two, when you have 20% down, you don't have to pay PMI. PMI meaning the private mortgage insurance, and that could be hundreds of dollars every month. At 20%, and it usually disappears when you have 20% down. Three, if you have 20%, you have just a stronger offer. See, more sellers look at buyers with 20% down are just more stable, especially in a competitive market. You also have more peace. And who doesn't want more peace? 20% down gives you peace because you automatically have equity in your property, and you also have more flexibility. You also have more option, and you do have more buying power. So when buyers come to me and they say that they have time, or that they're not in a rush to buy, and they're okay with their IRR, we look at their income, and then we look at their rent, and we look at just where they are financially. If they're okay, I advise to save 20%. I know it's not easy, but it's a good advice. It's a good thing to do. Now, if you cannot save 20%, or if you're in a situation that you can move from that, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with buying with 3% down. And of course, meaning it will cost you between 5 and 9% when you're at closing. So that's important to know. Here's a key distinction. Saving 20% should be a strategy, not a daily topic or daily tactic, or it should not really hold you back from your goals. Plus, remember, you're probably going to get to 20% as you pay your mortgage anyway, and we could talk about that in another video, how to pay that down even faster. Because here's what I don't want you to see. Someone spends 5, 6, 7 years saving while rent is still increased, while prices move up, while opportunities pass by, just to say, now I'm finally ready. Sometimes buying earlier with a smaller payment, with a smaller down payment, and letting time and appreciation work for you is actually the wiser move. That's why this conversation isn't about rules, it's about alignment. What worked for the other person, with your neighbor, with your family friend, doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So work with people that can help you decide. I help people decide. When I see buyers, we think about big questions like, do you want the lowest monthly payment, or do you want the fastest entry? Is your income stable, or is it growing? Are you planning to stay put, or are you going to move again? Do you want flexibility, or do you want leverage? There's no right answer. There's just the right answer for you. And that's important. That's the way that you have to think about some of these things. So a simple way to think about a practical framework about buying, you have to think about, again, 3 to 5% down, as I said before. That will give you a faster entry, more leverage, higher payment. When you think about 10% to 50% down, that's a balanced approach, and that's solid flexibility. And of course, when you have 20% down, there's more stability, there's lower risk, there's longer long-term peace. None of these are wrong. What is wrong is when you let confusion stop you from moving forward. Don't let fear stop you from achieving the goals that you want to achieve. Fear should never stop you from achieving the American dream. And this matters even more if you are thinking about investing, or if you're an investor, right? If you're thinking long-term investing, 20% often becomes the standard, right? The foundation for most investment properties is 20%. And here's why. When you are an investor, 20% down, you get better loan terms, you get stronger cash flow, you get easier approvals when you apply for these loans. So, which is why many people, they first buy their home, their own home. That's what they start with. They build equity in their own personal property. Then they use that position to invest smarter later. And then, of course, they transition, or that transition bring them closer to the timeline that it really fits for them. Because how long it takes to save, depends on where you're starting from. And that's important. So if you're starting from the 20% that you already have in your property, that puts you a little more closer than you're starting with 5%. The important thing is to start. So let's get started. Before we talk about how people are saving, we also need to talk about something just as important as saving, which is it's important. I lost my words. But we have to talk about debt. Because the reality is this. Wealth isn't just about how much you make. It's about the gap, that gap, between what you earn on one side, which determines what you can save, but also how much you owe, right? The Bible talks about that the ones that owe is a slave to the one that lends. We don't want that for you. So the smaller that gap is, the harder it is for you to move forward. So we have to widen that gap as much as possible. So the faster the progress starts, the faster you widen that gap, the faster the progress really feels for you. So if saving is one side of the equation, reducing debt is the other side. They really go hand in hand, and you do need both of your hands to make this happen faster for you, of course. Can you do it with that one? Yes, but it just takes longer. The quiet money leaks that most people miss as you look about savings and you talk about debt is that most people don't feel broke because of one big mistake. And that's the truth. Look at your bank account. A lot of people feel broke because of hundreds of small withdrawals they have gotten used to. I call these the companies living in your pockets. People that are just putting their hands in your pocket every single day, every single month, taking the money from you whether you want to or not. Money leaving your account every single month quietly. So let me give you some real life examples. Trust me, I'm gonna get to how you can save as well. So let me give you some real life examples. And these are just common monthly drains that people overlook and they ignore, but little by little, they just take everything from you. So take a moment and think about this. If you have multiple streaming subscriptions that you barely watch, guilty. If you have credit card with minimum payments that never seem to go down, check for that. If you have, buy now, pay later plans that feel small until they just add up. If you have just monthly membership that you signed up for years ago, like gym membership that you never go to. If you have phone plans with features that you don't use, but it's just a few dollars, but they take it from you every month without shame. If you do food delivery and you do that often and all those little fees that cost more than the meals, right? None of these feels dangerous on their own, but together they quietly steal your ability to save. Credit cards, they're the biggest silent killer of savings. Well, next to another one that I'm going to mention right now. But let's talk about the credit cards. Not because they're evil, because the interest is expensive. Call your credit card company. If you're carrying a balance of 18%, of 22%, of 28%, every single month, that's a lot of money. Then a portion of your income isn't really working for you anymore. It's working for the bank. And by the way, you can call them and negotiate your interest rates. Look at a financial channel for that, but you can negotiate your terms, especially if you have good credit, especially if you have a history with them. Talk to your credit card. Find out what your interest rates are and get those lower. That's important. Of course, you're trying to save to buy a house. I'm not saying close them and open another one, another topic, but I am saying you can call the ones you already have and you can negotiate with them. So every dollar you send to interest is a dollar that can go towards a home. That's going to somebody else's home. That's why paying down high interest debt is often the fastest way to increase your saving power. Without earning a single extra dollar, you could save by getting rid of those high interest cards because you're just going to have more every month. Let me touch on something that quietly destroys more saving plans than almost anything else, even more than credit cards sometimes. A lot of times, really. I kind of mentioned it before, but that's car payments. Credit cards and car payments are really destroying many households. The car payment isn't just transportation, it's the single biggest obstacle to saving to many, many homes. Right now, it's very common to see $600 a month car payments, $700 a month car payments, and depending on what you have, yes, you can see $900 or over $1,000 a month car payments. Wow. And that's before insurance, before gas, before maintenance. Ooh. Let's make this real. A $700 car payment, you need to understand this number. A $700 car payment is $8,400 per year. It's $42,000 in 5 years. That's not just a car. That's a down payment on a house. That's closing costs. That's part of the business investments. That's the difference between, waiting and owning. And here's the part people don't always realize. When lenders look at your finances, they don't care how nice your car is. They really don't. They care about, that monthly obligation. They care about, how that affects your debt to income ratio. Whether you can handle a mortgage on top of the high car payments that it's just slowing down your savings. It can't stop you from qualifying altogether. This isn't about judgment, it's just about awareness and a refocus of your priorities and your goals. Sometimes the fastest way to move forward with home ownership isn't earning more money, but it's driving something that is paid off. Something that is reliable, yes, but can actually get the job done without draining your savings every single month. At least something that gives you a future, that gives you some breathing room without draining your bank account every single month. $400, $500, $600, $700, $800 a month, that's a lot of money. Get a car that's paid off. Get that out of the way. Let's get that future. Let's get that saving. Let's say that saving ball started. Imagine instead of putting $700 in your car, you could put $700 on a high saving yields account, or $800 or $8,000 a month. You could make big waves instead of wasting money. Excuse me, I'm going to say it that way, on something that depreciates. If you can afford the nice fancy car, get it. If you can afford the vehicle that you always dream of, then get it. You need to afford it. You need to own it. You can have it on you. It happens all the time here in America, in your backyard. That person that's driving that really fancy car, you probably ask, how much do they owe? What investments do they have? How fast are they getting there? Is it just for show? Is it just for what? Because a lot of times, it's not very smart. If you've seen any of my videos before, you know that I like finances just as much as I like investing. So here's an example I see all the time. Someone wants to save $1,000 a month, and they're saying, oh, I can't save $1,000 a month. But you look closely at their finances, and you see that they're paying $400 in credit card minimums. They're paying $200 in subscriptions of things that they sometimes don't even use. That by itself alone is $600 every month that is just gone. Now imagine if you're able to just cancel the subscription, just cutting the subscriptions. If you look at renegotiating your bills that you have, if you look at paying off just one high interest car, just pay it off, just get rid of it. Suddenly $1,000 a month doesn't seem impossible anymore because you didn't earn more, you just kept more. This isn't about depreciation, it's just about awareness. This isn't about canceling every fund in your life. It's about being intentional. It's about asking questions like, is this still serving me? Or am I just making somebody else richer? Is this helping me move closer to ownership? Would future me be thankful because I pay so much money in my subscriptions, or because I really invested and put money into my house? Temporary adjustments can create permanent options. So saving starts by getting rid of debt and looking at the areas, honestly, between you and your partner, whoever they are, that you can come together and really make things better. And again, why does this matter for home buying or investors? This is important. Lenders just don't look at your income. That's not the only thing they look at. They look at everything. They look at your monthly obligation. I mentioned earlier, they look at your debt to income ratio. That's how much you owe compared to how much you make. They look at your ability to now take these new mortgage payments. Right? Reducing the debt doesn't just help you save, it also help you qualify for a loan. And look at my video that I talked about pre-qualification and pre-approval. That's important. So now that we have talked about money leaving your account, let's talk about how to intentionally build what stays in your account, right? Because when debt is managed, saving becomes realistic. And when saving becomes consistent, ownership becomes possible. Let me just interrupt you really quickly. Just to remind you that if this video is helping you in any way, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. I try to post videos at least once a week. No hypes, no pressure. I just want to give you some real guidance. And if you're thinking about buying or selling in South Florida, I want to walk you through the numbers personally. So please reach out. I'll be more than happy to meet with you over the phone, over Zoom, anywhere that is convenient to you, and kind of walk you through the process, and hopefully we could do business together. So please subscribe, please share, please like, leave a comment, give me a call, anything that we could do together. Let's conquer this real estate business together. Now let's get back to the video. All right, this is the most important part of the video. Let's talk about 3 ways that people are actually using to save for a home. This is important because this is where hope either becomes a plan or stays just as good intention and you let days pass by. So let's move past the theory and let's talk about what people are already doing right now to save for the first home or the first investment property. This is not overnight success. This is not in lottery money. This is real life, a real way, a real process. The first way that people are saving is automating their savings. Remove emotion from the process, which is one of the biggest breakthroughs I see buyers doing. They stop deciding to save and they actually automate it, right? That's not something they just do every month. They create systems that do it for them every single month. Here's what that actually looks like in real life. You open a separate savings account somewhere else, no checking, no credit cards, no anything, completely. And this is not for emergencies, this is not for vacations, this is not random spending. This is the account you're gonna have just for your house, right? Then they set up automatic transfers from their paycheck every single month, or whether you get paid weekly or bi-weekly or monthly, regardless. Before it hits your checking account, that money has gone towards your savings account. So whatever matches how you get paid, whichever way you get paid, checking account, then savings account. And here's the key to a mindset shift. You have to treat your savings like a bill, like another bill. Just like rent, just like your car payment that you got rid of, just like your phone bill, because if the money never sits in your checking account, you don't have to fight the temptation to spend it. This is a method that I use personally. I just have my savings account, a completely different bank account. I rarely see it. I don't look at it. I just have money going there until I reach the limits that I want to achieve. So you have to remove the temptation. Sometimes plans fail because, saving requires consistent willpower. Automation helps remove that battle because you don't see it. It has a purpose. It has a job. You have to pay that savings account. You have to pay your future home now. So, one, again, automate your savings account. The second way is using the invisible raise. And this can be a game changer, especially to your timeline as you move along and expedite your goal again of buying your investment property or of buying your home. Anytime money comes in, don't just upgrade your lifestyle, but think about it as money that can expedite your goals. So these are money that don't come from your regular job. These are money that you need month to month. So I'm talking about things like tax refunds and bonuses, overtime, commissions, gift, refund checks. Instead of saying, we deserve this, let's spend it, why don't you say, this is house money. Maybe not all of it, but maybe a large portion of it you could dedicate to that. Because here's what happens when you do this consistently. You don't just save faster. You save without feeling the pain month to month and year after year. For many buyers, this is a single habit that cuts their timeline in half. Not because they made more money, but because they finally gave extra money a purpose, not just waste it. The third way is by cutting strategically, not miserably. It's important to live. So let me say this clearly. Saving for a home is not about suffering. You don't need to live on rice and water, and beans. You don't need to cancel joy. You still need to enjoy life. And you don't need to hate your life because you're building a future. Don't hate your life today for the future you're building tomorrow. That doesn't make sense. But small, intentional adjustments matter. Things like, delaying a car upgrade. Things like keeping housing costs stable just a little bit longer. Trimming your subscriptions that you barely use. Pausing expensive habits temporarily. This isn't forever. This is just a season as you shift your goals to what you want to achieve. A temporary discipline creates a long-term freedom. You're not saying no to life. You're saying yes to ownership, stability, and options. Now, I put this part as a separate section because it really deserves its own section. Because for many people, side work is the difference between waiting and moving forward. A side job, that's what I'm talking about. And in 2026, a side job looks very differently than it used to. So this isn't about burning yourself out. It's about being intentional. Why side jobs or side work so well? And that is because it's income that truly stretches what you're capable of achieving, how fast you're capable of achieving it. It doesn't disrupt your main life. It's flexible and it can be fully dedicated to your home fund. So when buyers treat side income as bonuses instead of a lifestyle money, then progress just accelerates that much faster. What side work actually looks like nowadays, I'm seeing people save successfully through things like freelance or contract work, ride shares or delivery apps, weekend or seasonal work, consulting in their current field, online services or digital skills. Nothing flashy, nothing unrealistic, just consistent effort with a clear purpose. I'm by trade an educator. I was a math teacher. I am a math teacher. I'm still an educator. And on the side, I decided to begin my real estate business several years ago. And on top of that, then I decided to open this YouTube channel just a few months ago. And it's just extra that you can do, things that you enjoy doing, things that can just accelerate your plans. Yes, I am a homeowner here in Florida. Now I'm thinking about investing. I'm thinking about those large purchases. So I'm still living my life. I'm still loving my time with my wife and my son. And, I enjoy life. I enjoy what I do. I'm an educator, but I'm also a realtor. And now I am also a YouTuber. So, and this is nothing crazy. This is something that I do, as you know, once a week. I try to give you a video with information that can just improve your life. I enjoy doing it. And am I doing this for income? Yes, I am. Can you open a YouTube channel yourself? Can you find a side job that you like? Can you add extra to what you're doing? Yes, you can. By reducing debt, as I talked about before, by eliminating those things those companies that have their hands in your pocket, by increasing your savings, by adding extra income. And this is important because if you have a family, if you have a spouse, they need to be part of this. They need to be part of the equation. You have kids, they do too. They can contribute to the home and to the goals that you guys have together. This is very possible. Is it easy? No. Can you sit down on your couch and make it happen? No. But, can you waste your money playing the lottery? Yes, you can waste your money playing the lottery. But if you build these habits, you can make it happen. I believe you can, because I did it, I'm doing it, and I'm going to keep doing it. And again, big picture here. When you combine the automated savings that I talked about when you combine these invisible raises, money that comes from that you don't need month to month, when you combine that with a strategic spending, and then also when you focus on the side income, then you stop asking, will I ever buy? And you start asking, how soon? And that shift changes everything. So just to put a cap on this section, I like what Zechariah 4:10 says. It says, do not despise the small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. So no matter how small or how little or how slow you begin, it's important that you begin and that you focused. So whether you're in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, which you're about to talk about, get started. Be vigilant. Be consistent. And you'll see owning a home or owning your investment property will come sooner than you actually think. Let's move away from the pressure for a second, because there's really no universal timeline. Your age, your income, your responsibility, all that matters, and you have to be aware of that. So instead of comparing yourself to others, let's just talk about realistically, depending on where you are, let's talk about what is it that you can do. If you're in your 20s, for example, this season is really about building habits. You're not supposed to have everything figured out yet, and that's okay. Most people in their 20s aren't saving thousands of dollars a month, and honestly, they probably don't have to, or they shouldn't have to, or they shouldn't feel pressure to. What matters more right now is really just starting out, getting your feet wet, getting ready for your future. See, most buyers that are in their 20s who successfully purchase a home usually are saving between $500 to $800 per month. They're working they're working towards a 2 or 3 year timeline. They're focusing heavily on credit and consistency and understanding the process. In your 20s is the phase where you are learning how money actually works and how it just moves through life. You're building the muscle of paying yourself first, of watching your credit habits, of avoiding unnecessary debt. In your 20s, you're understanding how lenders think and what they're looking for. And here's a key thing that I want you to hear. If in your 20s, the goal should not really be speed, but really taking care of momentum. And that's powerful because momentum compounds. Saving a few $100s consistently does more for your future than waiting years for the perfect moment to start. If you build the habit now in your 20s, your 30s become easier, your options becomes wider, and home ownership just stops feeling intimidating. You're not late, you're really building that foundation that you need to have in your 20s. Enjoy your life, yes, but start putting that foundation together, right? If you're in your 30s, this is usually the season where you start to feel more serious about life. Life is fuller, responsibilities are heavier, and decisions carry more weights, right? So many people in their 30s, what they're doing is that they're balancing their career that is still growing. They're balancing family responsibility. They're exiting debt, right? And the pressure to make the right move. They just kind of, getting rid of all that. So let's say this up front. If you're in your 30s, you don't need to rush, but you do need to be intentional about what you're trying to do. Most buyers I see in their 30s who successfully purchase usually are saving about $1,000 to $1,500 per month. Right? They're working towards a 12 to 24 month timeline. They're becoming very intentional about budgeting, about debt reduction, about planning. This is a decade where clarity starts to matter more than hustle. It's not about squeezing every dollar. It's about aligning your money with your priorities. You and your spouse, you and your partner, you and your kids have to just get aligned. This is often the season where I see, they clean up their high interest debts. They start stabilizing their housing costs. They get serious about credit strategy and stop reacting, financially, and they just start planning. Here's something important. If you're in your 30s, saving doesn't mean putting life on pause, but it does mean making a smart trade-off in life. It's choosing progress over pressure. It's choosing structure over stress. When you approach saving this way, home ownership starts feeling overwhelming. And it starts feeling attainable, something you could reach and grab and get. You're not late if you're in your 30s, you're right on time. And as long as you move with purpose, you'll be fine. Well, if you're in your 40s, a lot of people in their 40s, they can buy. They're just hesitant. If they have at least followed some sort of foundation, as I talked about, they're able to buy. But the market sometimes needs to take a lot of things. So sometimes in your 40s, your savings might come from bonuses, or maybe you have a side income, maybe you have some equity somewhere, or you're restructuring your finances. So timeline here is often 6 to 18 months, depending on your approach, right? And remember this, good planning and hard work leads to prosperity, but hasty shortcuts leads to poverty. Proverbs 21:5. So if you're in your 40s, this verse really hits home, because at this stage of life, saving isn't about rushing or gambling on quick wins. It's about having just clarity and purpose and intentionality. You already lived long enough to know that shortcuts usually cost more in the long run. Hopefully you have learned that already. Pressure decisions brings regrets. You don't want pressure in your 40s. And peace comes from knowing your numbers. Saving your 40s often looks like focused planning, not extreme sacrifice, right? It's saying, I don't need to catch up overnight. I just need to clear path. I just need a clear path and a steady progress. This is the season where debt reduction creates breathing room. Intentional savings create options. This is a season where patience really becomes a financial advantage. So you're not behind in your 40s, you're positioned to move forward wisely, with experience, with discipline, and hopefully with purpose guiding the way. Before I conclude, I do want to talk about one strategy that most people really need to know about, and that's house hacking. House hacking, that's the strategy that changes everything. If you take one idea from this video, let it be this. House hacking is how many people, they buy sooner than they thought possible, right? With house hacking simply means, you buy a property, you live in part of it, and you rest the rest of it out. Yes, this could mean that you bought a duplex instead of single family, and in a duplex, you're living in one unit and you rent it out the other. But if you bought a single family home, maybe you have extra rooms and you're renting those out. A low down payment, with a rental income can do great things for you. This can lower your monthly payment. It can help you qualify. It can turn your first home into your first investment. And I see this work all the time, right? So instead of buying, again, a single family, which some people don't like sharing their home, which can work too, you can buy a duplex, a threeplex. My first property that I invested in, that I purchased here in the United States, was a triplex, a three-family property in Boston, Massachusetts. So it's a great way to get started. And think about that. Do you give away some comforts? Yes. Do you have to deal with tenants? Yes. There are ways to kind of go around that. But if it helps you buy your first investment and buy your first home and start getting some income, it's a great way. There are multiple forms of house hacking. Those are not the only ones. Maybe I'll do a separate video just on house hacking. But house hacking can lead you to a financial freedom and prosperity, and lead you to buy your first home, your first investment, a lot sooner than you think possible. Let's also talk about what people are rarely talking about. Saving for a home isn't just financial, it truly is an emotional decision as well. And the biggest mistake I see aren't money mistakes necessarily, they're mindset mistakes. Those like this. For example, waiting for the perfect condition, or comparing your journey to other people's journey, or saving without a strategy. Those are difficult mindsets that can lead to problems. Clarity brings peace, and peace leads to a better decision, and that's what you need as you make your money work for you. Do you know that there are more verses in the Bible about money than even about love? So that means money is important. The Bible talks a lot about stewardship, not rushing. Luke 16:10 says, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. If you can manage the plan, then you can manage the property. Start slow, start small, and that's okay. You will trust yourself with the small things, and you're gonna be trusting yourself with the big things as well. Let me give you these 5 takeaways before you go. First one is this: you don't need 20% to get started. That's it. You don't. You could do it with less. 20% is powerful, but you could do it with less. Number 2, your timeline matters more than speed, and understanding that is important. Number 3, house hacking can accelerate everything. 4, consistency beats intensity. Number 5, peace is part of the process. You need that. If you take anything from this video, let it be this: buying a home or your first investment property, that might be, isn't about doing everything perfectly. It's about making intentional decisions, just one step at a time, one day at a time, $1 at a time. Whether you're in your 20s and you're building habits, or maybe you're in your 30s and you're finding clarity on how to move forward, or maybe you're in your 40s and you're focusing on peace and stability. Progress is progress. Don't stop. Intentionality matters. And when your money has a direction, your decisions just start to feel lighter, right? So if this video helped you bring clarity, and if you help bring direction and maybe a plan, go ahead and like it. It helps this message reach more people. It helps my channel, it helps my content, and I appreciate it. And if you know someone who's saying, I want to buy, I just don't know how, then share this video with them. Ask them to watch it, and do the exact same thing for other people. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so. Thank you to those of you that have already. I highly, highly appreciate it. We're almost at 300. I'm slowly, again, just like the advice I'm giving you, I'm slowly growing this channel, and you have been part of my journey, and I appreciate it. Just because this is a space for people who want just calm and honest guidance around real estate, around finances, and just, build a legacy. No pressure. Just conversation. I would love to hear from you, so please leave a comment below. Let me ask you this: what feels harder for you right now? Is it saving? Is it managing debt? Or is it deciding when to buy? Leave a comment. I read every comment. Watch next this video. If this video helped you, you want to watch the next video that I've also put together, that I talk about the pre-approval versus the pre-qualification process, because that's also important. In that conversation, that just prepares you for when you're ready to make that offer on your home. You found the home and you're ready to make that offer. What do you have to do right before that? That's important for you. You see it right here in the screen, so please click on it, and let's watch that video together. Right. So thank you for spending this time with me once again, and remember, God loves you, and so do I. See you on the next one.